Welcome. Hello.
Mm.
Welcome to episode number 2 of Reiki Rockstars. And today we have Erin, who I've actually known for a very, very long time. And she took her Reiki training with me back in 2009. And welcome, Erin. It's so great to have you on board for Reiki Rockstars.
Jordy, it's my pleasure. And yes, you've been incredibly instrumental in the entire journey between your astrology reading going all the way back to 2009, which was my very first, and then joining your Reiki training in early of 2010. It's been amazing. It's been amazing.
Yeah, and we went to we did the trips with Feeler to Healer with Rick Lim's group. And I guess your first one was Guatemala, right? And then your second one was the Peru trip.
Peru was first, but yeah, they were.
Oh,
Peru was in 2011, and then Guatemala was in 2012.
oh, okay. So I don't think I was on that trip.
Oh,
Um,
you might have gone to one of the ones after then.
uh, it was, yeah, when we went to Tikal, and Mark Kiva was on that trip. But we went to Tikal, and we were doing ceremonies with the Mayan elders at the pyramids in Tikal. It was just amazing.
That I was definitely there for. The end of the Mayan, the end of the cycle of the Mayan calendar, December 21st, 2012. Yeah, you and I were on that trip together.
Oh, okay. Anyway,
I have photos.
yeah, it's just great to have you on board for this video, and I want people to know about what you do and where you do it and how you do it and everything. And I'll just say that one thing that really makes Erin a Reiki rock star is that she has actually incorporated Reiki into her practice and uses it on a daily basis. And she'll tell you about when she graduated from Pacific College of Oriental Medicine here in New York City, that that one of the first things she did when she got licensed was to work on a cruise ship. But it um, and she's had many wonderful experiences. I mean, she just before we click record, she told me about an amazing a impromptu clinic she did in a bus station in the middle of the night in Washington D.C. and treated 5 people with ear acupuncture. But when I first met Erin, a friend of hers, and was it Heather that referred you to me?
Yes.
Heather Duke, yeah. Heather Duke was my girlfriend at the time, and she was mentoring a lot of people at Pacific College of Oriental Medicine. And actually, Heather's like totally a Reiki rock star too. But Heather, like Erin, has started her own clinic and very successful in Salt Lake City, Utah. But I did Erin's natal chart. When I first saw her natal chart, I was like, oh my God, this woman is like incredibly talented and gifted as a healer and a teacher. And I really encouraged her to really move forward with her training in the healing arts, because at the time she kind of had one foot in like the normal kind of corporate world, where she was actually doing really amazing work in that sphere too. But and I told her, listen, you're a medicine woman, like through and through, and a great medicine woman. And I think that was really helped her, embrace her talents, which were really just beginning to sprout. I think of those talents as, like, I call it the buried treasure within, and it's which everybody has. Everybody has a divine immortal soul that never dies. It's like there's nothing wrong with us. We're like made in the image of God. It's in the Bible and stuff. But I was able to really say, listen, you really got massive talent to do this. So and then can you tell us a little bit about that time in your life?
Yeah, well, so when you met me in 2009, I was 2 years, actually not even 1 year, I just started acupuncture school in January of 2009. And I met you that November. And the reason I remember that was because it was right after my birthday. And so it was right around this time of year, actually, that
Yep.
I would have met you, because Heather was mentoring me, as you mentioned, as she did many people. And we were good friends. We got along great. And so I trusted her instincts. So when she told me, she was like, no, no, no. She's like, you have to go meet Jordy. Because ironically, I absolutely love astrology now. But back then I was like, why am I going to listen to this? I was like, this is, this is some woo. I was like, and she's like, Erin, she's like, you go to acupuncture school. I was in a very, you're not wrong. I had one foot in and one foot out. Part of me was like, woo. And the other part of me was like corporate business and Wall Street and all of my like, I remember even the friendliest of my Wall Street like cohort, the people, my colleagues that I used to work with, when I started going to acupuncture school, they used to ask me, how's Hogwarts? Like they had no
Hogwarts.
respect, right? They had no respect, no like anything for Chinese med, sadly, right? Which I'm grateful that this is much different now. But I went, thankfully I listened to Heather, right? Because there was, as you probably saw in my chart, my intuition was starting to speak to me more loudly at that point in my life, because I was looking to get away from Wall Street, but I had worked in the industry. I had a master's degree, right? For 8 years, I was in this place in my life of, I know I don't want to be here, but if I'm not here, I have no idea what I'd want to do. And
And
so,
you were a rock star in that world. I mean, you were making big money. You had the house in the suburbs. You were gonna
yeah, I
have
had two
like a
cars.
normal
I
life
had,
with
yeah, I had a sports car back then. I was,
the
married to a dentist.
husband, and you were gonna have kids, and then everything. Then like you
Yeah.
started to wake up, basically.
Yes. Yes. There was a huge awakening, including your astrology reading. That was a big part of it, because I think there was some part of me that knew, that like intuitively knew that I was not, that I was, it was almost like I was living somebody else's life, like somebody else's dream. And it wasn't until I finally reached essentially the end of it, right? Where I had, a good like partner, I had a good house, I had cars, I had money, I had all these things. And I was like, why am I not happy? I was like, this is not like, this is where everybody said this is like, the promised land. Why am I not, like,
American
what's
dream.
missing?
Yep.
And every time I went to acupuncture school, every time I went to, your Reiki circle, it was like coming home. And there was this just like, just settling. I don't know even how to explain it. It was sort of this just wash of energetics that would come over me that would just calm me down, where I was like, oh, and I kind of like look around, like I'd have this sort of like moment of like, soul searching of like, oh yeah, this feels right. Like this, like I'm just gonna stay here for a while. Like it's nice here. And so your Reiki circle was a big part of that. So getting into when once you gave me the astrology reading, you're like, no, no, you are a high priestess. What the hell are you doing in corporate America? And I was like, what the hell am I doing in corporate America? And it was
Yeah.
starting to like, plant the seed that maybe it wasn't just in my head, right? Because so much of that transition I received, God, it was an infinite seemingly amount of resistance from my family, from people who just thought I was nuts. People are like, Erin, you work on Wall Street. Why would you throw away your entire career, over, acupuncture, which again, at the time didn't really have a lot of respect. Like even in the last 15 years since I've been a practitioner, it's night and day, right? In
Oh,
terms
yeah.
of insurance coverage and other things. But back then, it was still very much, snake oil. Like my own father called it snake oil. He, by the way, is one of my best patients now. But at the time, yeah, it was sort of this like wild decision. I think people thought I was having a bipolar manic episode. Like people thought I was just losing my mind.
Something
And
wrong with you, and like there was actually something very right with you that you were getting in
yeah,
touch with. And that, I
And
mean, it's so typical with people like us. You know, the astrologer that I really learned about these outer planets in certain positions in the chart. I mean, that just getting that teaching for me was kind of life-saving, because then I realized, oh, that's why I feel like I never really fit in. I don't think, you know, all this
yeah.
kind of alienation. He actually called us aliens because we feel like we just like fell out of a flying saucer and got stuck here with crazy people, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
why are they
Yeah.
killing each other? Why it's, you know, ruining the planet,
Oh, I
and we
know. It's
and
hard
then we
to,
try to figure out a way that we can, you know, just like survive and fit in, you know, because fitting in has survival value, right? You know,
hmm
if you're an outcast, um, it's going to be hard for you to make enough money to to eat food and stay alive. But
right.
yeah,
Right.
so
And
I mean,
so,
my alienation, and also we have to be careful of addictions. And
mhm.
that's a big part of my story, which I'm sure you know. You know, I mean, I had like horrific drug addiction issues, and when I finally got clean, that's when I came into my own as a healer, because I had that buried treasure of being I had the High Priestess energy, you know, and
Mm.
that's actually to have the High Priestess configuration in your natal birth chart. That gives you a magnetic energy field. That's the best thing you have as an energy healer. That's the best thing you can have. So that I actually had a gift like you, and you have the high priest too, and I have that too, but not quite as strong as I'm more feminine than masculine with that
Mhm.
stuff. But it's you know, to live in a culture like ours where, you know, in indigenous cultures we'd be recognized at birth probably. Oh, you know, and then we'd work with the elder of the tribe that was the mystical person or the healer person or whatever. But now in modern society, it's been hard for us, and many of us fell by the wayside, burnout, trying to fit in, you know. And I mean, I know several really amazing healers that came from the corporate world and that started to burn out, and then they realized the only thing that worked was Reiki or acupuncture or,
Mhm.
you know, psychotherapy, like for, you know, Jungian psychotherapy um, type stuff, like real spiritual therapy, you know, because we are deeply spiritual people.
Mhm.
But you know,
Well, and
thank God that you found your treasure. You found the buried treasure within you and nourished it. You know,
did I
and
ever tell you how I got into acupuncture school? You're going to laugh about this. How I
no
found acupuncture? It was a complete accident. So you might have read this in my bio, right? But
accident.
yeah, universal accident. Yeah. So I was looking, okay, so this won't surprise you at all. And then I'll get you at how Reiki ties into all of this because it does play a really big role. But I originally used to go around when I worked on Wall Street massaging all my coworkers because my sense of empathy was just so high, right? It was hard for me not to, right? I'd see everybody just look so stressed, right? Everybody just looks so just constantly like live wires just around. And I think it was helpful both for them, but also for me, right? To just ground out that energy. And so I would go around and just, lean on their shoulders and stuff, nothing formal, right? I wasn't trained as a massage therapist. It was just something I'd always done, right? Since I was 11, I think. I used to go around massaging my family members for like quarters so I could go play in the arcade. Talk about the 1980s, right? And so I I used to do the same when I got to Wall Street. And one of my coworkers eventually tried to hire me, like offered, remember, I'm not trained, right? Offered to hire me for his wife who had actual back problems. And Harold was his name, bless his heart. And he uh badgered me for like 6 months. He's like, Erin, he's like, you're amazing. He's like, you need to, come help my wife. She had a herniated disc. That was what was wrong, which thankfully I didn't know what that was at the time. But luckily I had enough sense to be like, that sounds serious. I probably shouldn't work on her. You should really go get somebody who's licensed and knows what they're doing. And Harold, to his credit, was persistent, like just absolutely would not give up. He's like, Erin, he's like, you clearly love doing this. He's like, go get a license, come back, and then we'll hire you. He's like, if you really feel that way. And I was like, and eventually I caved. Right. Eventually my curiosity more than anything got the best of me. And so I went to the open house, the massage. I signed up for the massage open house at the Swedish Institute. Right. And at the time, Jeffrey Yuen in our
That's right.
acupuncture field
Yep.
was running the school at the time. I don't think he is anymore, but he was amazing.
Now that ended a long time ago.
Yeah, that sadly, but
they don't have acupuncture anymore. They don't teach acupuncture there anymore. That's all. Yeah, that's gone.
funny. So it's funny that I got in during this time. So check this out. So punctuality admittedly has never been my forte. So, and working on Wall Street was no different, right? So I got off of work probably at like 6 p.m. So most people are supposed to get off at like 5, right? So I leave work at like 6. By the time I get to the open house, it's like 6:20. The open house was supposed to start at 6 o'clock, right? So I show up late to the open house and I'm like, hey, I'm out of breath. I'm running. I'm like in a rush, right? And I'm like, hey, I'm here for the open house. And they point to a room and help me grab a seat. And I was like, okay, great. I made it, right? Because nothing had started yet. And I was like, okay, I just figured they were running late. And so I sit through, Jeffrey Yuen gave the open house for acupuncture. Now, what ended up happening was I sat through an entire hour listening to that amazing man just give me an entire outlay of like the Taoist look on life. I mean, it was magical. Like, I'll never forget this open house. And he, just spoke so eloquently about it. And it was just so clear. There was something about it that just made so much sense to me that I was fascinated. And I was like, oh my God. And then I get to the end of it and I was like, I walk up to the admissions person who's just, smiling and just waiting for everybody to, ask questions and stuff. And and I was like, this was amazing. I was like, but when are they going to talk about massage? Right. I was very confused. Right. And so, and the woman goes, oh, right. You can see the look on her face, like, oh, honey. Right. And so she was like, that was next door. And I was like, what do you mean? I was like, what the hell did I just sit through? I was like, and she's like, this was the open house on acupuncture. And like a good admissions person, right, they duped me. So they sweet talk you, right? They're like, oh, they're like, Erin, if you like both of these programs, right? If you like massage and you're interested in acupuncture, she's like, you should really start in the acupuncture program because credits wise, right? Back then it was a master's degree. And so a master's degree, because a lot of the classes overlap, right? You've got anatomy, physiology, a lot of the underlying Chinese theory, you need to take all of that for massage too. And so she's like, well, if you start in the master's degree, then all of your credits will transfer to massage, which is only an associate's. But if you start in massage, she's like, you'll have to retake all the classes at the master's level, which is a logical argument. How dare she? That was a total logical argument. And that was what got me in acupuncture school. I found acupuncture by complete accident. It was nothing, at least consciously intentional about that. But it's kind of amazing when you think about.
Hold up. So did you start at Swedish? Did you start your?
No.
How did you end up at PCOM, at Pacific College of Oriental Medicine, rather than Swedish Institute? And by the way, one of my first Reiki students was Lailan Choi, this really amazing Chinese woman that did the whole thing, with I think she was already a massage therapist, but then she studied with Jeffrey Yuen and actually graduated and got licensed. And then shortly after that, he was gone. But yeah, Lailan Choi is one of my first students back in 2006 when I first started teaching.
Oh, I love it.
Jeffrey Yuen, I've never really, been to one of his presentations, but everybody talk, especially in New York City. Jeffrey Yuen is amazing, and he's like this little guy, that has like a kind of feminine.
And it's a running joke because you can't tell how old he is. We all think he's like 180 years old because he's been around forever, but you can't tell. Like he's got jet black hair. Like he doesn't look, he like probably looks like,
But
I think he will
you
forever
know,
be 50.
that that's one reason why I love Taoism, because one of the tenets of Taoism is like the three Chinese immortals. They
Hmm.
actually will teach you how to not age. And that's
Yes.
one thing. I'm 73 years old now. Do I look 73 years old?
No. Oh
Because
my God, Jordan, you look amazing.
I started studying the work of Mantak Chia, who's really the most famous Taoist teacher on earth right now. I got certain teachings, especially the semen retention thing, which it's like American men are, it's like stupid.
Oh, I know.
You cannot waste that semen, man.
Hmm.
That's for making babies. That's it.
Yeah, cultivation. You gotta keep
But
it
that
in. Hold it together. Yeah.
no, that is I'm actually writing a sitting with Sensei piece about that now for this book I'm publishing. But yeah, I got that. I was very, very fortunate to get that teaching when I was 29, my first Saturn return, and had a massive Kundalini activation just from not ejaculating for a month.
Mm.
But and that's I mean, you're taught that in acupuncture school too.
Hmm.
I know
Yeah,
that.
it's
Yeah.
well, and to answer your original question, so the reason I didn't end up at Swedish, I tried, but it was a logistics issue. The schedule didn't work for me.
Because
So,
you were still working full time,
because I
right?
was still working full time, so I needed like night and evening classes. So I ended up doing a ton of research, and PCOM had the best options and the best schedule. And I went to go visit a lot of the other schools, and I've taken sadly just online. I haven't seen him in person since, but I've taken a lot of Jeffrey Yuen's classes, even though I never specialized in classical acupuncture because that was one of his fortes. Um, yeah, he forever like left an imprint on me. So in the
You
best of
know,
ways.
after you graduate BCom, the classical acupuncture program got bigger and more people got interested in it. But
I'm not surprised.
one of the things I wanted to ask you is when I was reading your bio on your website, you talked
Mm,
about studying five elements acupuncture, which I would
hmm.
also, I've been around a lot of acupuncturists for a long time, mostly because Peter was just constantly referring his students to me. So
Mm.
I trained a lot of acupuncturists here in New York City, and became friends with a lot of them, and also also the free clinics that we were doing. We would have the younger acupuncturists that didn't have like full-time practices. We would have them volunteer in our free clinics, or when Mark and I did Clarion Clinic, we did this clinic where you could get for $50, you could get a half an hour of Reiki and acupuncture and 15 minutes of body work. And,
Yeah, that
and
sounds
we were,
amazing.
yeah, we did that 2 Saturdays a month at Madison Wellness, and we had the like online booking thing and everything, and that was
Oh yeah.
amazing. And Lisa Sumption was volunteering, for us. And, well, you'd get paid, it wasn't a volunteer gig, but
Yeah.
some of the more you know, the thing with acupuncture school, and this is a shame, is that most students never started practice.
Oh, I know.
It's you spent like how $100,000 and you have a student loan, and then they graduate and they're like, oh, blah, blah, they're just. But see, that's why in my book you're not just a Reiki rock star, but an acupuncture and
Mm.
massage therapist. And were you trained in herbs too?
Yeah.
Oh my God!
I love it
See,
all. Love it
see
all.
this Erin, like when Erin does something, she's going all the way. She's going
That
all
is
the
very
way with.
true. It's
That's
been like
why
that my whole
she's
life.
making, you know, six figures on Wall Street and no, no, she ain't playing around, man. She's going all the
No.
way and she's gonna excel.
Yeah.
She is a medicine woman extraordinaire. And
Aw. Well, thank
it's
you, Jordy.
you know, for a teacher, that's the greatest blessing in your life, to see a student really just take the ball and run with it and go, hit the grand slam home run over and over and over again.
Mm. Well, speaking to which, why don't I tell you about the Reiki side? So,
Yeah.
on the Reiki side, when I took your original Reiki Masters, because acupuncture school takes so long, right? So you've got 4 years, and then I did the doctorate after, so 5 years, and then did the advanced study. I did a year with Neil Gumenick to study classical five element. So really, it was like 6 years of training. One of the amazing things about Reiki was that I was able to do that right away. So it was sort of this access point for me to really start practicing while I was going through this incredibly lengthy process where I wasn't really able to use it because it was still very much, I was still very much learning. And so the Reiki was my way of being like, wait a second, like I can start using, I can start feeling, I can start working with this medicine now. Because, as you could probably see in my astrological profile, patience is not one of my virtues. So
Oh yeah.
a
Yeah.
lot of fire. And so I started self Reiki was a big part of it. Your original, just like Reiki basic position, right? Just heart and sacral chakras, for instance.
Yeah.
That was something that, that gave, it gave me the ability to finally tune in. So remember how we were talking about 1 foot in and 1 foot out, right? And so I was having a lot of trouble at the time, right? This is, I think, a lifelong process, which has gotten much easier than it was back then. Back then, when I tried to listen to my internal voice and my intuition, there was a lot of noise, a lot of noise. And Reiki was a nice way of helping me quiet the noise so I could really feel like, no, no, how am I feeling? Like what's my energy feel like, and you know, what's going on around me to help, silence everything so I can actually focus and really, get a better gauge of that to then have that cultivation and have that ability to then use it, right? To center and then give back, right? Because
Yeah.
so much of my energy was so scattered all over the place, especially back then, that I was struggling. I was really struggling to do that, and Reiki was a big part of how I was able to get away from that. And what I started to notice, and you would find this amusing because part of your astrology reading was to tell me that I was a medium. And I was kind of surprised by that. I remember when you first told me. But as I was doing more Reiki, not receiving, but giving, it would ground me. And I never felt fatigued by it, which was interesting. Like occasionally, if I was hovering, right, if I wasn't actively hands on the person, my muscles would get tired, right? That's just a physical limitation. But as far as the actual energetics of it, it would actually nourish and
Yeah.
reinvigorate me, which I thought was fascinating because I
Yeah.
would listen to other people, talk about how they would do energy work and they'd just feel exhausted by the end of the day. And that was never my experience.
Yeah. Let me dive in here because I've actually realized recently that Reiki and well, any kind of really spiritual healing touch modality, there's a lot and a lot of different, and I've trained in a lot of different modalities, but Reiki healing touch actually stimulates the production of stem cells. Did you realize that?
Fascinating.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, but that makes
Right.
sense.
Because we're actually nourishing the inner child, with the Reiki.
Yeah.
So it's rejuvenating you. It is.
Yeah.
Your body's gonna start to produce more stem cells because you're going into that deeply relaxed state. The mind chatter quiets down, and then everything starts working the way it's supposed to. We're not created to like, you're born, then you grow old, and everything gets worse, and then you die after like, what is it, the average? Actually, in
Like 80
America,
something. Yeah.
the life expectation has gone down over the last 10, 15 years. Uh,
Sadly. Yeah.
I don't even want to get into that.
Not you,
No,
Jordy. You're going to be with us forever. You hang in there.
but yeah, I mean, it's you know, that's the beauty of Reiki, is that when you get the activation, which you call the attunement, it only takes 2.5 minutes, but you're actually, that attunement facilitates the, this is the way I explain it. There's like the potential to do Reiki is within everybody. It's there, you know. It just needs to be nourished. It needs to be watered, like you water a seed. And then this energy blossoms within you, and you begin, and this is a gradual process. And yeah, there are breakthroughs where you have the aha moment, and then, you know, whatever you have, you're becoming more enlightened. You're actually becoming lighter because you're embodying more light, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I always remind my students, and I actually emphasize that more and more the longer I teach. I tell people this is an enlightenment lineage, and it also happens to work really well as a healing touch modality, you know. But first and foremost, this is about enlightening yourself. And the more enlightened you become, the less mind chatter you have, the more inner silence you have. And then actually, the more energy you have, because you're tapping into a cosmic source of energy, not just your physical chi. If you're giving away your physical chi to heal people, you're going to weaken yourself.
Well, and you're not going to last. I mean, you're going to burn out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was so Reiki I've used in many different ways. So cultivating my own chi, my own energy, my own sort of tap in was the first step. Then when I started doing it for other people, I started to notice I wasn't very good about it in the beginning. Like I think I was giving a lot of my own, right? But then it started to dawn upon me. I think it happened honestly by accident, if I remember correctly. There wasn't, I don't know if I could pinpoint it to a particular moment, but I noticed as I was giving treatments, certain treatments I felt drained and certain ones I felt much more invigorated. And then I
Yeah.
started to pay attention. I was like, what am I doing different? I was like, what's happening on the ones where I feel drained? So as I would breathe, I would just focus on absorbing what was all around me to then, channel it through me instead of just from me, it was coming from outside of me. And ever since then, now it's been a magical experience that, anytime I have a Reiki patient, I was like, oh, this is going to be nice. I was like, oh, okay, I know this is going to be a nice hour for me too. And at this point in my career, because I've been practicing it for so long, it's very immediate. Like I remember when we were in Guatemala, somebody was working on you, and I forget what it was, but you made a comment. You were like, oh, I think I was doing something else, and you were receiving in the background. And I remember you mentioning, you were like, oh, there it is. You're like, there's the flow. It just took a minute for it to start. And something about that comment that stuck in my mind, because I think I ended up giving you a treatment that night, or it was on that same trip at some point, and it was almost like, oh, the flow just came out immediately. Like it just pours out of me. And you were like, oh, that was pretty, like it just started. Like I just like laid
Yeah.
hands and there it was.
You
And
know,
um,
the
and
other
that's been
thing, sometimes when you're treating people that don't have a high vibration,
mm,
there's people that are actually, I don't want to call them energy vampires, but they get, that sounds really dark, right? It's not that they're evil people, it's that they're used
no.
to it's like a codependent thing where they're used to kind of harvesting other people's energy, because they, in their own mind, they think that they don't have enough energy. There's a scarcity, scarcity consciousness.
Yeah.
But but I tell my students, like, and also, you have the high priestess energy, I have it. We actually take other people's energy in and give it back in a higher form. And I had just
Mm,
recently, I had the experience of where it's like some of that energy got stuck in me. It didn't cycle all the way through because I was getting a little bit run down.
mhm.
And I finally realized, it's like I was with TJ at her place. We don't live together, but I was at her place, and it was a Sunday morning. I woke up and I was like, oh my God. I went to wake up TJ. I said, listen, we have to get up. We have to go to work. She's like, what are you talking about? It's Sunday. Then I was like, oh. And I realized, like, I had been meaning to take a salt bath for like a month, but I was too busy, you know, I was too busy. I had the like the big thing of salt in the bathroom and everything. And then I got in the tub, and for like 45 minutes or an hour, I was in that tub, and I kept filling it up with hot water and with 3 pounds of salt in there.
It's so
I
funny.
got out of that tub and I felt like a brand new guy. Like,
well, you know what's funny? My partner Max, we've been together for 5-6 years now. He's amazing. He's jokes. He's like, Erin, he's like, if I ever see you start to, short circuit, right? Like if I'm doing too much, right? Basically not staying on top of my self-care, he will dunk me in a bath. Like literally a hot tub. It's like grounding out, like just, wash out the magic, right? And just, literal cleansing. And it does. It's kind of amazing how well that works. So simple, and yet,
water is an incredibly divine substance, and like it really is. Water is life. I mean, there's this teaching that we got in school, like, oh, first, mammals were first just lived in the ocean, and then they came on land, and they, I don't know if that's true, but also in indigenous creation myths, at least the Kogi tribe, they say if before anything was created, there were the dark waters of Divine Mother's womb.
Most creation stories, right, start with water. Even human life, right? The babies sit in water,
9 months.
In a sack of water.
9
yeah.
months in the womb, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And did you know that a lot of the amniotic fluid is actually urine from the baby?
Makes sense because the baby's got to be, they're going to be processing and, metabolizing. I didn't know that.
Urine
that's
is an
gross.
amazing. Urine is an amazing substance. It has like 3,000 things in it that are good for you. It's not toxic or dirty or
sterile,
but
right? Yeah.
Yep, that's right. But what were we talking about? Oh yeah, we're talking about burning out and treating people. But one thing that I didn't know this until I just contacted Erin recently to ask her if she wanted to do the Reiki Rockstar video. And I didn't know that she was using Reiki on a regular basis in her practice, which is rare. Many of the acupuncturists and massage therapists and other different healers, they'll take Reiki and they may use it for themselves or others, but they haven't incorporated it into their professional practice. Erin has done this big time. And so I would like to hear more about that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, thank you. And it is a huge part of my practice because it balances me because I tend to be a little bit more vigorous with my needling. And I do a decent amount of trigger point therapy. And for some clients, that's totally overwhelming, right? Less is more, right? For them, that does not work. And so a lot of what I do with my clients that need a lighter, more subtle technique is I'll do acupuncture, and like you've done in your own free clinic, combine it with Reiki, and I have clients who will ask for it, which is really cool. And it's also been my privilege, which I never thought I would get to this point, but it's been really nice to find other light workers. Like it's been amazing to occasionally work on somebody that will surprise me. I'll have, people, they tend to have this just almost like blinding, like kind of white light, at least from my experience, that will usually come out of the heart chakra, sometimes all chakras, depending on how strong it is. And it's magical to see the look on their face. Must have been what I look like to you when you first, kind of indoctrinated me into this magic, that you'll see this just teary-eyed look on their face when I tell them, I'm like, you are a light worker. I'm like, you could do this work very easily. I was like, I agree with you that anybody can, but some people, right, it's just stronger, right? It's
Yeah,
more
some people it's much stronger,
and just to watch the look on their face when I tell them that, this sort of like acknowledgement of their own intuitive knowing. Like you see people where they're like, oh, I feel like I always knew that, but nobody ever saw it, right? Like nobody
yeah.
ever brought it out. And that's also come through my Reiki practice with clients I've seen when they've asked me to work on them. So that's been just a lovely experience.
You know, I am a huge fan of the channel work of Robert Shapiro, and he's not well known. There's other channelers like, what are some of the really superstar channelers that have great, huge, whatever. We've all heard about them. They're all over YouTube. But Robert Shapiro, he was channeling one of the beings that he channeled, said 30% of people on Earth, or 30% are angels. And I was like, oh, so
Wow.
that's what we are. Because we're angels, straight up. And if you are, naturally devote yourself to relieve suffering in the world as a healer, as a teacher, you're basically an angel. And there's many different angelic families, and I did a lot of study, and earlier in my practice, I don't really have time to read other people's stuff anymore because I'm doing my own work, But uh, I'm not the only guy that said this. He was channeling some high level, higher dimensional ET, and they said, yeah, the 30% of you guys on Earth are angels. You're just learning to be spirit guides for human beings.
Mm-hmm.
That's what us aliens are. We're not alien. We're not like ETs. We're just angels. Yeah, we're angels, and I mean, it's not a big deal. We just devote ourselves to relieve suffering on this planet. and
Well,
but
and it seems at this point in my career, I don't know, call it universal, sort of serendipitous fate, if you will. But I remember there was one client, I was about to tell you this story actually before we started. So I had a woman, and in Oregon, there aren't a whole lot of Latin people, right? But she was Latina. She was passing through, like Eugene, I forget why, but she and her daughter, and for seemingly no reason, right? She saw my clinic and just stopped. She was a walk in, and I don't generally take walk ins, but talk about just the stars aligning, right? Because I just happened to have that day. And she came in and
do you
she
have a do you have a storefront?
I do.
Oh, so you have a sign out front of.
Yeah, but my door is usually locked. But she came, she knocked on the door, and again, I don't have a receptionist, it's just me. Well, actually back then I did. Back then I did, but my door is always locked because we have a fairly significant transient community where my office is, which is fine. But I
Yeah.
also just want to safeguard my
And What
space,
what town is your clinic in? Your
Eugene, Oregon.
Gene, okay.
Yeah. And so this woman knocked on the door, came in. I just happened to have an opening. And so she comes in, she's like, "Hey, I'm really looking for Reiki." And I was like, "Yeah," I was like, "That's fine." And she didn't really give me a whole lot of information. She didn't tell me why, right? Anything else. And I was like, okay. And and her English was so, but her communication was basically like, hey, I feel like I need something, right? Was kind of the gist of what she said. But no, not really any other context. So I do just basic chakra realignment on this woman, and her crown chakra was just dead to the world. Like there was just nothing happening. Like everything else seemed to be okay. And I did a lot of work to just basically kind of open that up and just nourish and regenerate and reconnect. And I remember I said something to her. So I give all my clients you'll find this funny. I give all my Reiki clients homework. So
Yeah.
anytime,
I do
whatever
too.
I find,
Yeah.
yeah, whatever I find, I like to do a lot of elemental based homework. Hey, shh, sorry, my puppy is wanting attention. So I do a lot of elemental based homework. And so at the end of every session, I tell them what I find, right? I ask them for their experience, and then I give homework based on that. And so I told this woman, I was like, your crown chakra is very, very low. I was like, tell me, I was like, what's your, do you have any spiritual practice? And I see tears start to come down her face. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, she didn't really say anything. And she was like, well, she's like, I used to. And I think what you're feeling, like this lack of something, is coming from this void. I was like, and I told her, I was like, your spiritual practice is still there. I was like, you always have access to it. And I was like, whatever happened that made you take a break from this, you can go back. I was like, whatever resonates with you, it doesn't even have to be what you used to do. And I remember this woman just teared up in like tears of joy. And there was just something so profound about this moment, because she was not even from Eugene, right? She just like happened to find me. And it was like this like perfect alignment of like everything. And she was like, and she just ended the conversation. She was like, thank you. She was like, I will. And I never saw her again. And that was years ago, like years and years ago. I couldn't even tell you her name. It was just this sort of like passing through like moment, like I was meant to be part of her journey somehow. And I've had numerous moments similar to that, but that I would have to say was probably one of the most profound, where it was so obvious to me. And I almost felt a little awkward, because I was like, is this right? You ever have those moments of doubt, Jordy, where you're like, God, this is so like blatant to me. It's like screaming at me, but also I'm like, does this person resonate with this? And I always like to mention those things. And in that case, it just really struck home, and just seemed to just like click the pieces in place for this woman. And it just, I hope she found what she needed.
Yeah, I
But
mean, that's a catharsis, and but that's, I want to share a story about you, and this is when I knew that like this woman is really, really doing it as. But you were, I hadn't seen you in a long time, and I think it was after you'd done the whole 6 months on the cruise ship, and
mm,
you had kind of you said, "Listen, I'm back in the city for a while. I'd like to come to your Reiki circle." Do you remember
I
that?
remember this. Yeah.
Was that after the cruise ship?
Yes. Because that was either right before, I think it was after. So that would have been like 2014.
That sounds about right.
Something like that. 2013,
Yeah.
2014. Yeah.
You came to my Reiki circle and I said, okay, Erin, could you treat me? And literally as soon as she put her hands on me, I was like, oh my God. The
Mm.
Reiki was just like, it was incredible. It's so powerful. And the tears were just streaming down my cheek. And yeah, I mean, that woman, and you've been practicing for quite a while by the time that woman came. That was like years after you treated me, and
Yeah.
you use your Reiki on a daily basis. And do you have like a formal kind of Reiki meditation thing that you do on the?
Ooh, me and formal don't really go together, but but I will
Yeah.
say I do have a pretty regular practice. Um, so what I tend to do is, it's my way of finding, like I was telling you, it's my way of finding stillness. Stillness is a very foreign concept to me. So I struggle with that a lot. And Reiki is incredibly helpful in bringing that all together. So like I'll tell you a couple other stories because these are fun. So
But wait
talk
a
about
minute.
my
Let me finish my story first, because
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
after you treated me, I said, Erin, that was just some of the most amazing Reiki I've ever from. You said, well, I've been using Reiki every day since I took the classes. It was like, oh my God. You know, there's not a lot of students that can say that. Because
Mm,
a lot of the people that take Reiki training, Reiki, my fees are low. Reiki's easy to learn. Anybody can
yeah.
learn it. A lot of people, it's just another stop in another kind of in like the spiritual grocery store, like, oh, I want to try this. I want to, they're just kind of dabbling, you know. And
Hmm.
but once in a while you get somebody like Erin that's like, this is amazing. You recognize the value of it, right? That
Hmm.
this is something that literally all you have to do is like go like this, you know, and meditate for, 15, 20 minutes a day. Your life over time is going to get better and better and better. And, the inner silence thing, ever since I was in my teens, like my early teens, I was reading Zen Buddhism. It's like, I have to stop thinking. I have to stop thinking. And of course, if you're trying to stop thinking, you can't. It's
Yeah,
impossible.
that's all you're gonna do. Yeah.
But when I was, and this was back around that time, around 2014, and I was living in Jersey City, and I started to realize it's like there's no mind chatter anymore, and that could that could last for like a minute or two, and my whole life I've been trying to stop thinking, but I had stopped trying to stop thinking, and I was just doing meditation. And at that time, I was doing a lot of Sanskrit mantras. I was doing meditation every day, sometimes for like an hour or two a day. I was leading guided meditations in the Reiki circle and training. By that time I already trained like hundreds of people and had like, teachers graduating and teaching. But
I loved your guided meditations, by the way. That was one of my favorite parts.
oh, thank you.
I
Thank
used to
you.
love that. The part of
I'm
the
yeah,
Reiki circle just helped ground me.
yeah, I'm still doing them every Monday night. And like, by the
Mm.
way, it's like I do it on audio conference call. You
That's
can
right. You
join
need to send me the link for that.
it's
Email me,
free, and
please.
you can
Yeah.
join from anywhere in the world, you
Hmm.
know. So yeah, I'll send you a link for that. But
Oh, you're gonna look. God, so many stories to tell you. So, well, I'll kind of condense some of these, but um, talk about self Reiki, right? So I had numerous international trips, right? The cruise ships around Australia, New Zealand, and the South Pacific. So I did a 7 month contract out there alone, right? I went to Nepal, right? I did a 3.5 month rural clinic out there, just me,
that's right. I
right?
forgot all about that.
Yeah, with mindful medicine worldwide. I
Wow.
was their acupuncturist.
Wait, you didn't get
And
sick there?
oh, I got dysentery. I got parasites. I got all, yeah, yeah, I got sick. I was suffering from pretty solid malnutrition by the end of it. Yeah,
Yeah,
I was
it's like
bad.
India. You're gonna get sick.
You're
It's
gonna
just a
get
matter
sick.
of
Yeah.
how bad it's gonna be.
But so Nepal, right? So funny, Nepal was probably the most often that this happened, but Peru and Guatemala were no exception, right? Even though I was with friends, I was with, you're kind of solo traveling in your own way, right? Because, we're all sort of misfits that are like put together for a common purpose. And so in Nepal, when I would get scared, right? Because sometimes when you're traveling alone, you're like, oh shit, right? Something happened. There's nobody to turn to. Or especially when I was in Nepal, there was nobody who spoke English, right, to turn to, right? In Guatemala, in Peru, and in Australia, everybody spoke English. So Nepal was the glaring exception to that. And so when I went, right, I didn't realize because I was quote unquote going over the summer, right? I went to Nepal from May to August and like beginning of May until like end of August. And so I didn't realize that in Nepal, that's not summer, that's monsoon season. And
Oh,
so I
yeah.
was in Nepal during some of the most ferocious, like thunder, very cool to watch. And, but terrifying, right? Because we're on the top of a hill, right? In the like foothills of the Himalayas, we're in the middle of nowhere and I mean the wind, right, the construction in the third world's not the best, right? So the windows would rattle, like the building would practically shake during some of these storms. And I would do Reiki. So the way I would ground out my energy whenever I had any of these moments, right, where something would happen that would rattle me was self Reiki. And I started doing more like distance Reiki too, where I would tap into not just self Reiki for myself, but open my energy to sort of the universal consciousness and tap into my friends. And this was where I started doing distance Reiki, which I know you do a lot of, where I would start to, either think about my parents, either send them messages or ask them questions and do other things, and it would create those cords, right? So I know everybody talks about cord cutting, but nobody really talks about cord creation, funny enough. And so I would do a lot of these, connectors to, again, help ground myself and, find comfort and find company when I was, just off alone. I had a
That's
lot
great.
of these moments when I would, you know, I took, in between Nepal and Australia, I took a 6-week solo cross country trip from San Diego all the way up to, Denali, Alaska, and then across to New York.
Wow.
Before that was after Nepal, but before I left for Australia. And again, that was all alone. And so there were many moments where I would end up doing Reiki on like fellow passengers and travelers and, just people I met along the way that were either having a rough day, because we'd always get into a conversation of like, what do you do for a living? And so that was always just, it was a way of just sharing sort of that energy, through the ether. And even though my parents, anybody who cared about me was incredibly worried because I was always off wandering on my own, nothing bad ever happened. Like somehow there's sort of this talk about, angels protecting you. There was this, profound energy that just seemed to always radiate out, that just always brought back the right people. Even
Yeah.
I could think of times when I picked up hitchhikers, when I rode off with random guys on motorcycles who I didn't know. Like I did some risky things,
Yeah.
that
They're wild
most
things.
people would be like you did what?
Yeah, that's
And
what
I
I
would
love
end
about
up
you.
like doing Reiki or acupuncture on these people. Like I always, people would joke with me. They're like, Erin, do you have needles? I was like, listen, I always have needles. Like I always have needles on me. They live in my car. They're in my office. I have some in my purse. I was like, I always have needles. And
Wait a
on
minute.
the
Maybe
rare
it's
occasion when I didn't, I had Reiki, right? Reiki was always, accessible in any of those places, in any of those conditions.
so tell us about the bus station.
Oh yeah,
The
this is a
bus
great story.
station
So
impromptu clinic in the bus station.
yeah, so this is one of those many examples. So when I was coming back from Peru, so this was August of 2011, right? This just happened to coincide, right? Because I lived in New York City at the time,
But
with
just a
hurricane.
little more backstory. So both Erin and I were a member of the Healer to Healer group,
Mhm.
and we were doing free clinics in Guatemala and Peru. And the Peru trip was really amazing and transformational. That's the first time we were able to take ayahuasca in the Amazon, you know,
Yeah.
in like a real indigenous setting with a great shaman named Roman Hannes, who's like world famous. You know, his book is #1 bestseller on Amazon in the shamanic category.
Wow. Oh, I'm so
Yeah.
happy for him. Roman's amazing.
Yep. And
That man also had a very profound impact on me because remember, I left corporate. So there was some overlap between, hush, all right, my puppy. She's still in training. Shush. But I left corporate America in February of 2011. So I was barely 6 months out of corporate America by the time I went to Peru for my first healer to healer trip, which was where, right, we brought Chinese medicine and acupuncture to a rural indigenous community. And then they taught us the local shamanic medicine, right? It was this healing exchange. And so when we sat with Roman, right, who was the shaman that we worked with on that trip, my intention for the ayahuasca ceremonies that we did there were to basically help quell some of my doubts, right? Because remember, everybody was telling me I was nuts when I left corporate America. So I had some questions, right? I was still kind of like, did I make the right decision? Did I just like make the worst decision of my life? Did I just throw away my entire career? Like, did I just make this huge mistake? I was having a lot of that, right? That mental chatter, right, in the back of my mind. And so I go on this trip and have these amazing, profound ayahuasca experience. I don't know if I ever, quick tangent, because this will tell you what kind of mindset I was in when I got to the bus station. So my very first ayahuasca, I did two, right? I sat in two of the ceremonies. The first one was for me. The second one was for my dad. I'll get to that story later. Distance healing through ayahuasca, Reiki and ayahuasca. And so, which is just like, that's like Reiki on, supercharged, like on turbo. And so my first ayahuasca experience, I was like, am I meant to be here? Right? That was my intention. Was like, am I supposed, like I'm having a lot of doubts, like, am I supposed to be here? I would like access to my unconscious mind to help me really answer and embody that question and that answer and that experience. And what I saw was monsters that surrounded me that kind of looked like a grueling version of like Where the Wild Things Are. If you ever read that book. But they were like slimy and nasty. They weren't attacking me at all, right? But this was the vision that I had, right? They were just there and just wouldn't go away for what felt like an eternity. It must have been, I want to say it was probably at least 2 hours in real time, but it felt like just absolutely endless. And so I eventually, I started to lose my patience. So I reached out to touch these visions, and all of the grueling nastiness melted off of the creature. And that was what I saw. And then suddenly it was this like happy, smiling, sparkly woodland creature. And so I reached out, probably literally, if I remember correctly. So I must have looked insane if the lights were on, right? Because ayahuasca, everything's dark. So you probably saw me in the darkness going like this, like, or reaching out, just having a moment, right? Like we all were. And as I was touching these creatures, in the vision, they all started to melt all of the negativity, all of the illness, all of the slimy grossness just melted off of them. So naturally, I took this as an interpretation that, yes, I am meant to be here, and my touch is very healing. So this was how I was incorporating this. Yeah.
You were given turning the negative energy into positive energy with your Reiki, and you got your answer,
Right. So I got my answer. So fast forward to the bus station, right? So this was the kind of state of mind I was in going into this thing. So Hurricane Irene hit New York. So I got stranded on my way back. I flew from Peru. I got into Miami International Airport, which was a zoo, right? Everybody got stranded in Miami because New York was another major hub that they shut down because of the hurricane. So I got the last seat on a flight to DC, right? And then I was going to take from DC, I was going to take the Bolt bus, which is about a 5-hour bus, from DC into New York, because traffic was still, shush, off, go on. Sorry, because traffic was still bad, but it was still, accessible, right? The roads were not closed. And so I arrive, right, in DC at this bus station at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, right? So it's like the middle of the night in maybe not the best neighborhood in DC, because most Greyhound stations are not located in the. And DC in general is generally not the safest area. And here I am, like, open-hearted, like blasted wide open by this ayahuasca experience. So I walk into this bus station, which has like this, youngish college student. So I was maybe, let's see, in 2011, I was 27, 28 at the time, right? And so this like college student who must have been late teens, early 20s. And then a couple of these big burly like dudes, that older guys that probably would have intimidated a normal, like small, like I'm only 5 feet tall, right? I am a tiny woman, very loud, but tiny. So I walk in, take a seat, and I'm just kind of like, I'm like looking at the energy around, like I'm just, again, very open to what's going on. And so, what's striking me the most is this college student that just seems really stressed out, right? Because he was also trying to get back to New York and go to school and do all these things. And so uh, I start talking to him. I start chatting him up, right? Because we're awake anyways. Everybody's just kind of wired, waiting for the bus. I think came at like 5 or 6 in the morning, something like that. And so we had a couple hours to just basically camp out in this bus station. And so so I started talking to this kid, and and he um, and he just is so, unable to calm his energy down. He asked me what I do for a living. We start talking. I tell him I'm an acupuncturist, and I'm also going to school, and that acupuncture is amazing for stress. And I kid you not, I start needling this college student in the Greyhound bus station, because I have all my equipment with me. So I just start doing not a protocol, right? I do ear acupuncture. It doesn't require anybody to take any clothes off. And he's just sitting there like calm as a Hindu cow, right, in this bus station now, where you see all the stress just melt off this kid. And then suddenly all these other big burly dudes just kind of lean in. They're like, does that really work? Right? You see all these guys like, and suddenly I found myself, I was like, yeah. I was like, ask me questions, right? And we have this like little mini acupuncture clinic in this DC bus station at like middle of the night, like total witching hour. And then we all get on the bus, like practically best friends, like the next morning, and head back to New York. It was one of those like profound, like impromptu, acupuncture clinics
You
in
know,
times of crisis, right? When everybody comes together.
whenever I would teach acupuncturists, I go, what, it's like, you may not ever use this in your practice. You may or may not, but probably not, because I had already trained a lot of acupuncturists, and
Yeah.
practically not a single one was actually using. I said, anyway, because when you're needling somebody, you're putting that needle in with the intention to heal. You know what? The Reiki is going in with that needle.
Yeah.
And that, it's like, if you're used to getting a lot of acupuncture, you know that like different every acupuncturist that you get the needles from, it feels a little bit different, that's because their energy signature goes in with the needle.
Yes.
Different acupuncturists have different styles. Some are really gentle needlers, some are deeper, some do this tradition, or it's 5 elements, or classical, or TCM. It never feels exactly the same. Even if they're doing the same points, it's not going to feel the same.
Right.
So guess what? You got your Reiki attunements, you got your Reiki training, whether you like it or not, whether you intend it or not, that Reiki is going in with the needle.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
that's part of your vibration, is that you are at least partially enlightened from having
Mm-hmm.
those Reiki attunements. You
Oh,
never
100%.
can never lose those attunements. Now, it may go
Yeah.
dormant for a while if you're not practicing much, but all you have to do is just start doing it, and it'll kick in again.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I mean, and that's what I mean. Like I end up using it, actually getting back to my partner Max. This was funny. We had been dating for probably at least a year at this point, where every time we were just, snuggling like on the bed or on the couch or something, I would always have a hand over his heart chakra. And Max is a very salt of the earth kind of guy. He's born and raised in Oregon. He's a contractor. Like he's, very handy kind of guy, but very like, doesn't like all of the stuff that I do is like incredibly woo, right, to him. And so he had never had any exposure to like acupuncture or Reiki or anything like that. And I remember one day he just asked me, right? And he was like, I think it just dawned upon him. He finally connected the dots because, he knew like what I did for a living. And so I would just always have a hand on him and just be kind of like tapping into, his energy field to just basically match, right? To match vibrations. And, right? You just, kind of, tune into your partner. And he was like, are you doing Reiki on me right now? and he was, and I was like, yeah. And he's like, have you been doing that this whole time? And I was like, yeah. I was like, yeah.
Pretty much. Yep.
I was like, pretty much. I was like, and oh. He's like, oh, okay. He was just so like it just was tickled me that, he eventually like started to notice, even though that was more of connection than necessarily treatment of any kind. But the kind of right, it kind of all goes together. So
Yeah. It's I've actually treated people, they say, well, I didn't feel anything.
mm.
Now, I know I have really strong Reiki. I'd practiced diligently for years and years and years. I got trained back in 2004. I know the Reiki's happening, but people can be so shut down and they're,
Hmm.
because especially men, because that's women feel all the feelings and stuff. They do all like that. So we don't do that as men, you know.
Right.
So yeah, even a guy like your boyfriend, he's going to become gentler. He'll get more in touch with his feminine side. He'll be more sensitive to energy just from being around you. You
Oh
wouldn't
yeah.
even have to put a hand on him because you're in your energy field. You're just like shining Reiki like the sun, you know.
Hmm.
And then that's a blessing. That's such a blessing to have somebody like you as a partner. It's um,
Thanks, Jordy.
because yeah, it's like um, you're not gonna, your relationship won't be abusive or
Mm-mm.
yelling at each other,
Mm-mm.
which a lot of relationships are, you're acting out of your trauma rather than your soul essence. And it's,
Mm-hmm.
but it's, trauma healing is trending now, massively trending now. Everybody's like trauma informed on your,
Mm-hmm.
as you're on your resume and everything. Everybody wants to be trauma informed because people are realizing that's what it all boils down to. That's why people get crazy and start having these mass trauma events called we call them wars, which is just a form of insanity. You know, um, and if we can heal trauma, then we can have world peace. And that's what's happening right now. We're going to have world peace in our lifetimes. It's coming in really quickly now.
It warms my heart. I told you this before that you still, and you always did, talk about how world peace is basically inevitable, that it's coming and we will
It's
have
just,
it. And
it's
you're one
just
of
a
the few
nat,
people who do that.
yeah, it's just a natural cycle of, the ages. And we're entering age of Aquarius, golden age, whatever you want to call it, the new age.
Hmm.
It's coming and nothing can stop it. And by the way, these guys on Wall Street, you know what they're doing now? They're going to Central America to take ayahuasca. They're buying like huge geodes to put in their apartments and stuff, crystals
Oh,
and
I
stuff,
know.
stuff that
I
they
know.
laughed
The
at.
irony is not lost. Yeah,
Yeah, they are.
I know.
I know guys that are like deeply into this stuff, and they're on Wall Street or they're, in the military or it's where you think bankers or whatever, you think, oh, these guys will never. They're doing it. They're doing it because now it's the cool thing to do. You know, uh,
Yeah, I know.
the, the
It's
movie
become
stars.
trendy, which,
Yeah,
it's a double-edged sword, right? Because a lot of them do it out of context. But yeah, but I agree. It's
better
definitely
better than
it's
not
at
doing
least
it
it's
at
a
all.
start, right? Yeah, better
Yeah,
than not doing it at all. Yeah.
yeah, and it's all good. And I mean, I just found out that now they're starting to use this Tesla energy technology, and like Florida has like spiritual healing grid around the whole state. And I know people that live
Wow.
there. It's like I'm feeling so good all the time here. I just never felt this is going
Wow.
to be and I was wondering because my the heavenly sources have told me by 2032 no more collective trauma on this planet. Erin, that's only
Wow.
7 years from now.
I
And
know.
how the hell can we heal that much trauma? It's in the land too. It's not just in people's bodies.
Yeah.
And that's something I was really acutely conscious of doing all the clinics in Guatemala. You had like mass graves and people like seeing their whole families shot, and people with like uh, wounds on their wrists from being chained up and tortured, and most of the women have been raped there. That's a deeply
No.
traumatized country, and we, to this day, I mean, the ripple effect is there from what we've done there. And Dan Wunderlich is still doing clinics there. He has like a mobile van. Well, he doesn't, that all ended during the pandemic, but the work that Dan has done there has been incredible because now, do you remember Peter Karen?
Yes,
From,
he was in my cohort. I would have
yeah.
graduated with him if I hadn't left New York
So
when I moved to
Peter
the
has
West Coast.
very,
But
Peter has a very successful practice now. And he
of
just in the
course he
last
does.
couple,
He was amazing.
yeah,
He was in Peru with us too. I can't
he's just
remember
like
if he was
this.
in Guatemala. He might have been.
He was on the first Guatemala trip, and he was just like we wouldn't let him like he's like first year, and he wasn't allowed to
Yeah,
do any kind of needling or anything. Just like this
yeah, yeah.
kid. He's like a grown man now with like he has great social media presence and a great practice, and he has a
Mhm.
great space in on the Upper West Side. But he was just in Guatemala with Dan just recently, and he
Wow.
had he was doing a day by day updates on Instagram. But the yeah, trauma's getting healed, and now we have like Tesla type technology that with the healing frequencies, with magnetic healing frequencies, this is being installed gradually all over the planet, and that's going to accelerate the healing of trauma both in the earth and within us. So it's very exciting times, and like now, like I have my red light. Do you know about red light therapy?
I don't. I mean, I know I've
Oh man,
obviously heard of it, but I don't know a lot about it.
red light therapy is amazing.
Hmm.
Amazing. I mean, there's nothing
Tell
that
me
it
why.
can't, because it's a specific frequency of red light. And I'm convinced that because, red, what chakra color is that? That's root chakra.
Yeah.
If you have a really good connection with Mother Earth, I do a guided meditation where it's like, okay, feel into your root chakra. You have a red root. Imagine a red root going down to the center of the earth into a big ball of brilliant white light in the center of the earth, connecting your heart with the heart of Mother Earth. You have to be properly grounded. If you're not, you're going to have inflammation. You know, if you don't, if your house isn't grounded, the electrical system can catch fire. That's inflammation.
That's an
So,
interesting parallel. I like that. I'm going
so
to use that on Max
grounding.
because, contractor.
So the red light therapy mat, and this is my mat. Those are
Hmm.
all little lights, little LED lights, and they're not like the LED light bulbs, which are flickering really fast. They're not very good for you. I don't like that light. But these are non-flickering LED lights with a specific frequency. It's around 60 point something. That is a universal healing frequency. They've healed. Like I have an old injury on the side of my left thigh from a
Mm,
bicycle accident when I was a little kid. And it
mm,
started, all the trauma started to come up, and it was hurting, and my hip was inflamed. I was like, oh, hell no, I
mm.
ain't getting no hip replacement. And I started doing, I bought the red light therapy mat, wrapped it around my thigh with like the Velcro strap. And then I was doing DMSO aloe vera gel, which is also
Mm.
amazing. It's like practically instant pain relief. And also the aloe vera gel is very cooling and soothing. And also the nanosoma, which nourishes the DNA. The combination, like that hip is totally healed now. And almost all the scar tissue in my thigh has become healthy tissue again. Incredible. You know. Mm.
Wow.
I was heading for hip replacement. Absolutely. No
Yeah,
more.
the technology is there.
It's all
We have,
it's all going to be
yeah.
sound, light, frequency, and energy. This is the real healing.
I haven't gotten so much into light therapy, but that's probably down the road for me.
Mm.
Lately, I've gotten into sound healing. That's my latest earbug. Because it has so many crossovers to other, right, to the spiritual grocery store that that I go to so often, right? So sound healing, right, incorporates my magic and science brains because I have a very strong affinity towards both. And so, you've got the mathematics and the physics of like resonance and, the different ratios and things. But then you've also got the mysticism and astrology and a lot of the astronomy and stuff that's built into sound healing because so much of it takes the vibration of the cosmos, right? The macrocosm, and then puts it into like tuning forks or gongs or whatever it is to, basically to match pitch for humanity, the microcosm. And so it's just marrying my two great loves. And there's so much philosophy and history going back to all the ancient, like Egyptian and Greek civilizations. And I've just been, my inner nerd is very excited. Right. And so
Yeah.
much of that is energetics, right? Energetics is all about, vibration. And I find it amusing that everybody still thinks it's so woo, but vibration is something we've been able to track for I don't even know how long, but a very long time. Light frequencies we can measure, right? These are not ethereal concepts, right? It's real. Like, and I mean, it's always been real even when we couldn't measure it, but we can, which makes it that much more, accessible and
It's important.
legitimizes it in the minds of, how we rate things.
That's exciting that the scientific and the spiritual are merging now, and then you have spiritual science, and it's geometry, it's mathematics, it's quantum physics.
Sacred geometry fits into that, and yeah,
and it's all the same thing, just
well, in
different
between
facets
sound healing and then numerology and astrology, and they all like go together, right? Like a 3 in numerology is all about harmony, right? A trine in astrology is also about like harmony and things working well together.
That's right.
And a musical third, right? Which is, again, like trying to create, either, I mean, it depends on which musical scale you're using, can be dissonance or resonance, but you've got all these different like overlaps. And so sound healing, the acutonics program is what's, giving me a lot of capacity to merge them together. And that's been amazing.
Yeah.
That's another funny story though.
But and that's when your third eye opens, when your right brain and left brain are synchronized, and and that's when you have your higher perception, and you become psychic basically, and all these psychic abilities. We as the aliens or angels, whatever you want to call this, we all have like highly intuitive, empathic psychic abilities, clairsentience, clairaudience. I have a whole new healing modality called angelic fluid light, which I got clairaudiently. I was channeling vortex healing energy, and I was like, oh, no, I don't want to use that energy. What should I use? And then whoever the divine whisperer in my ear, angelic fluid light nutrients, use angelic. It's like, what? I didn't think that up myself. They told it. They said angelic fluid light nutrients. Then after 6 months, I had a whole modality, angelic fluid light healing. And that is angelic and divine mother, Reiki with angels and divine mother, basically, and the mother energy, the source energy. I started saying everybody comes from the mother, everything comes from the mother. Then I found like these like Hindu masters that were saying exactly the same thing, that the divine feminine is the highest vibration in the universe. The only thing that's higher is Om, the sound current, and the light current, the divine feminine, divine mother. Everything comes from the womb of divine mother. And that's my teaching now. You are an angel, and everybody comes from divine mother. And the father energy is the more structural energy of like sacred geometry, is the structure of the universe and the laws, cosmic law. That's the masculine. But the mother energy is a loving, nurturing, healing, energy. And it's just ecstatically blissful to love divine mother. But I'm putting in a plug for myself.
As you should.
Erin, I feel like we could go for like another 2 hours easily.
I know.
But we've been going for over an hour, and I think that we should call it quits. But I am so grateful that you consented to do this with me, and you are truly a Reiki rock star, and I honor you. Huge love, praise, and honor for you. Thank you so much for taking, the teachings that I gave you, and you ran with them, and you're really doing amazing, just amazing work. And of
Well,
course,
it is my privilege and my pleasure, Jordy. Thank you for the invite.
Look at the text below, and you will see her link for liberatedspirit.com, right?
Mm-hmm.
Liberatedspirit.com. She's located in Eugene, Oregon. But I noticed on your website you do distant work too.
I do.
But does that include distant Reiki?
I don't have that listed on the website, but I do a lot of distance healing just, for whenever I feel like it's needed. So that's actually probably where I'm at right now, is incorporating, projecting the Reiki that I generate, or should say channel, and doing it to faraway places more often. I used to do it a lot more when I traveled, but recently it's been coming to the top of my mind again. So thank you for the reminder. I should add that.
Yeah, that
to
why
my
not?
website.
It's like since the pandemic, especially, most of my sessions are distant, for the energy healing, and I call it angelic with light now, but it's just a form of Reiki. But most of my now I'm finally starting to get more clients in person at Moxie Wellness. Lisa's space in Soho, and that's in New York City. But so our links are down below, and I hope you enjoyed the Reiki Rockstar episode number 2. I certainly did, and thank God for Erin and all the wonderful work that she's doing up in Eugene, Oregon. So take good care, everybody. Don't worry. We're entering the golden age. Everything's going to keep getting better. We are going to have world peace.
100%, Jordy. I love it. You started this,
It's all my fault.
It's all your fault. All your fault. Beautiful world peace. All right. Well, thank you for having me, Jordy. It's been a pleasure. All right. Bye.
Don't forget, you're an angel.
And you.
Thank you. I can own that. Yep. I'm an angel.
Mm-hmm.
Halo
Right.
on the head.
Oh, I love it. All right. Thank you, Jordy. Bye.
Bye-bye, Erin.